After finishing the fourth year of medical course in UST, Jose Rizal decided to continue his study in Spain. Rizal seeks approval from his brother Pasiano from his secret mission. This was evident in his farewell letter to his parents and his sweet lover Leonor shortly after his departure in Spain. In his letter, he said that he had a mission to fulfill that is alleviating the suffering of my fellow men. He said that he feels something that obliged him to live and strive with faith. Rizal's departure from Spain was kept secret to avoid detection from Spanish authorities and friars. Even his parents did not know. Only some of his relatives and friends knew, like Pasiano, his uncle, his sisters, and etc. He used the name Jose Mercado, a cousin from Binyan. During his voyage to Singapore, the ship captain Donato Lecha befriended him. Rizal described him as affable man. On May 8, 1882, Rizal saw a beautiful island and he remembered the Talim Island with the Susong Dalaga. Rizal stayed at the Hotel de la Paz when he docked at Singapore. In Singapore, Rizal transferred in another ship, Gemna, a French steamer which left Singapore for Europe on May 11. Rizal tried to communicate with his fellow passenger, but most of the passengers are French and they did not understand Rizal. On May 17, the ship reached Point Galle, now Sri Lanka. Rizal described Galle as picturesque but lonely and quiet, at the same time sad. The following day, the ship resumed towards Colombo. He described Colombo as beautiful, elegant than Singapore, Point Galle, and Manila. From Colombo, he continued his voyage through Indian Ocean and Africa. Rizal described Africa as inhospitable land but famous. At the next stop, in Aden, he found the city hotter than Manila. He proceeds to the city of Suez, the Red Sea terminal of the Suez Canal. Rizal was impressed by the beautiful moonlight which reminded him of his family and Calamba. From port, the ship proceeded his way to Europe. On June 11, Rizal reached Naples. He was impressed and mesmerized by the beauty of the city and the historic site. On June 12, it docked at the French harbor of Marseilles, and he stayed 2.5 days enjoying every day of his trip. On June 15, Rizal left Marseilles by train for the last stop of his trip to Spain. He crossed Pyrenees and stopped at the town Portbou. After he left Portbou, Rizal continued his trip and finally reached Barcelona on June 16, 1882. At first, he doesn't like the city because he stayed in the town's most ugly side, but later on, he came to like the city.
The Filipinos in Barcelona, that some schoolmate of Rizal in Ateneo, welcomed him. They gave him a party at his favorite cafe in Plaza de Ataluna. After that, they called the attentions of the guests to give the latest news and gossips in the Philippines. Rizal wrote a nationalistic essay that entitled Amor Patrio, in English, Love of Country. This is his first article that written in Spain soils. She sent it to his friends in Manila. Basilio Teodoro Moran, a publisher of Jaron Tagalog, The Amor Patreon ay nakasulat sa ilalim ng pangalan ni Rizal na siya ring nakalagay sa Jaron Tagalog at ito ay laong-laan. Sa taong Agosto 20, 1882, na-publish ito at sinulat sa dalawang lengguwahe. Ito ay Spanish at Tagalog. The written in Spanish was the original one that written in Barcelona, and the Filipino text was translated by Marcelo H. Del Pilar that caused a quite sensation because of nationalistic flavor. Moran was impressed by Amor Patreon and requested to Rizal to make another. Rizal wrote the second article with the title of Los Valles, in English is Travels, that also published in Jaron Tagalog, and wrote again with the title of Revista de Madrid, in English is Review of Madrid, that he wrote in Madrid on November 29, 1882. but this one is not published in Jaron Tagalog because of lack of funds. Manila moves to Madrid. While Rizal staying at Barcelona, he heard some bad news about cholera that's ravaging the Manila and province. Cholera is illness and a lot of people died, according to Pasiano's letter. The another sad news from Philippines was the letter of Chingoy that Leonora is unhappy and was getting thinner because of being absent of her loved one. Life in Madrid. November 3, 1882, Rizal enrolled in the Universidad de Central or Central University of Madrid with the two courses, medicine and philosophy. He also studied painting and sculpture in the University of Fine Arts of San Fernando, took a lesson in French, German, and English under four private instructor. He also practicing to fencing and shooting in Hall of Arms of San Jose Carbonell. Rizal already knew that she came to Spain is to study for preparing himself to serve his fatherland. He didn't waste his money for nothing. Instead to waste his money for nothing, he spent his money to the things that he needed. He spent his leisure time in reading and writing in the boarding house. During twilight, he sipped coffee and fraternized with students from Cuba, Mexico, Argentina, and etc. at the Antigua de Levante. On Saturday evening, he visited the home of Don Pablo Ortiga y Rey, who lived with his son and daughter. Consuelo fell in love with Rizal. Rizal is not handsome, but his charisma, noble character, lot of talents is standing out and enough to make attract to young women. Rizal was being lonely by his foreign country, and he was attracted to the beauty of Consuelo. He composed also a poem for Consuelo that dedicated for her, and his poem entitled A La Señorita COEP that expressed his admiration for Consuelo and found solace with joy with Consuelo. But Rizal backed out and cannot taking serious the relationship with Consuelo in the two reasons. He was still engaged to Leonor Rivera, and his friend Eduardo is in love with Consuelo, and he can break their friendship because of girl. After arrived at Madrid, he joined Círculo Hispano-Filipino, a society of Spaniard and Filipino. Upon the request of his member, he wrote a poem entitled Me Piden Versus, in English is They Asked Me for Verses, that he declaimed during New Year's Eve reception of Madrid held in the evening of December 31, 1882. Rizal, as lover of books. Rizal's favorite pastime in Madrid was reading instead of gambling and flirt with women. He stayed at home and read until midnight, that she do in his early childhood. He buy a second-hand book that money he saved. He was able to build a fair-sized private library of his collection books. Rizal's first visit to Paris. During the first summer in Madrid, he went to Paris and lived at cheaper rental hotel. Like all tourists, she was attracted at the sights of Paris, such as beautiful boulevards. Unlike other tourists who enjoyed their vacation, Rizal improved his mind by observing closely the French way of life. He spent his hours in visiting museums, libraries, gardens, and especially the hospital where he observed Dr. Nicaise treating his patients, and the Luxembourg hotels where he observed the examination of different diseases of women.